going on, everybody? You are live with Osiris. Welcome to the Author's Lounge. The world is filled with storytellers, and I, along with my guests, are here today in the Author's Lounge to help educate and inspire the young generation of writers and creators. Now, my guests are professionals in publishing, writers from a wide range of formats, and successful entertainers. They will provide beneficial advice on what to do and what not to do on your path to success. So, without further ado, I'll present to you our next guest. Let's go.
This is take two with my wonderful guest that I have here today. I attempted to do a session with her recently, and I have no clue what happened with my internet, but it wasn't having it that day. But, since that time, I've actually had an opportunity to meet our guest in person. I was on a panel that she was hosting at the San Francisco Writers Conference the week of February 12th through the 16th, 2026. Had a wonderful time. So let me not waste any more time here. I'm going to go ahead and read off her bio. Our guest is the Amazon best-selling hybrid author of How to Blog a Book, also the author training manual, creative visualization for writers, and a host of ebook writing guides. She supports writers as a book coach and certified high performance coach. Plus, she is an award-winning journalist and blogger and the founder of the Nonfiction Writers University and the Write Nonfiction in November Challenge. In addition to that, she also had a book that released in January 2026 titled Change the World One Book at a Time. Right there. For those who are listening to the audio-only version of this book, please be sure to go and check out her book. I'll be sure to have that linked into the bio of this episode. But without further ado, I present to you the wonderful Miss Nina Amir. Welcome back, and good to see you again.
Thank you so much. Good to see you again. Hasn't been that long. Hopefully we'll be able to get this recorded this time.
Yeah, no, for sure. With no hiccups. So before I even continue, I do again want to say thank you so much for having me on board in your panel. That felt like some sort of a star-studded panel, and I was just plugged into it. So I greatly appreciate you believing in me and wanted to get me to be included in that panel. And I had a wonderful time watching you lead the team to a successful closing of that panel.
Well, thank you. And it was a pleasure to have you there, and it's an honor to be on your podcast.
Yes. Oh, yes. So where do I start? First, let's start with your book, How to Change the World One Book at a Time. What was the inspiration behind you creating such a powerful tool for writers or for people in general?
Yeah, I was involved with the San Francisco Writing for Change conference for many years. It kind of disappeared during COVID. They did a virtual one time. And then this year, the summit that you were on, the panel was part of the Writing for Change Summit, which was kind of a retake of that conference. And so I just was always really taken by the fact that the people at that conference, the Writing for Change conference, had so many different types of books that they were writing that they really considered being, about change, whether it was personal change or global change or environmental change or business change, or there was somebody who had, changing the interior of people's homes so it felt more comfortable. It's just amazing the types of change. And so I was inspired to write a book about that. And the conference, the co-director of that conference, Michael Larson, really encouraged me to do it. And if I go back even farther, when I became a magazine journalist, which is, I went to college to be a magazine journalist, and I always thought that I would write for magazines like Self or Glamour, not because I was such a big fan of women's magazines, but like Self magazine in particular had all these articles in it that were kind of self-help, right? They were, how to lose weight or how to have a better relationship with your partner or whatever. And I liked that. And when I went to college, I had to have a minor in something, and I minored in psychology because It's about how people change, right? And so I feel like even back then when I was in college, my focus was to write things that were helpful to people and that helped them change and solved problems and that kind of thing. And so I think this is right along the same lines of, how do you write a book that will actually inspire and motivate someone to take new action? So
Yeah.
that's how it came about.
Oh, nice. No, and I think when it comes from a genuine place of creation, it's gonna, I believe it would resonate a lot more with the people, especially the people who are seeking that information. So, my follow up to that, right, is regarding the summit. What I really enjoyed about the summit was just the diverse backgrounds that each presenter brought to that particular time block. And it wasn't just my block. I understood you did it throughout that day. Well, how do you go about picking a team together and presenting them in the manner in which you did it?
So it, I remembered what Mike, the kind of panels Mike had, and I was on a lot of them. And it was always experts on something. I mean, the panel you were on was more about, it was focused on people who had done some writing for change and their journey. So I was looking for people you know, who had done that. On the other panels, there was a marketing panel, and that was marketing experts, right? I mean, so I just looked at what are the things people need to know. So if you were to pick up my book, you would see that it's split up into 3 parts, and one is about the change process and why you need to understand the change process so that you can write about change and understand your own relationship to change and your reader's relationship to change, etc. And so I did that. The first panel was me. And it wasn't really a panel. It was a presentation. And then the second panel was on, I'm trying to remember, but there was one on marketing. So the middle part of my book is all about creating an engaged community around your cause or mission. And so, we did a panel on that. And so I look for the best experts on that subject. And that's pretty much how I go about it. I also ran the personal growth for writers track. And again, that's a little harder to fill because I'm looking for coaches and, coaches who are authors and people like that who can speak to the habits and mindset of being a writer and an author. So I'm just looking for the best experts I can find in varied areas.
For sure. And one thing too that I thought about from the perspective of the audience, because I went out and I spoke to different people after some of the panels or after some of the events throughout the day, and the commonality there was such an indulgence that they had with the amount of information that they received that it was not overwhelming, but it was so much that they were asking the question of, is this a constant thing? Granted, I know the Writers Conference, San Francisco Writers Conference, is annual, but are there others for people to attend? So for you, is the San Francisco Writers Conference the only conference that you attend, or do you attend others throughout the year? And if so, what's the benefit for people who are seeking that type of knowledge to attend multiple throughout the year versus just one?
So there are others. I've spoken at a bunch of them. And I'd be happy to speak at them again, except they tend to not pay. So, the San Francisco Writers Conference also, we pay a little bit to some people, but it's an organization. It doesn't have a lot of money. And I feel like, I don't know that all conferences are run by an organization of some sort, but they don't tend to pay their speakers to come. So for me, I did that early in my career. I went to, like with my first couple books, I went to a lot of conferences, and I didn't actually find them to be better. I think the San Francisco Writers Conference is the best conference out there. I think it's the most comprehensive. But the Writers Digest Conference used to be good. I haven't been to it in years, but anyway, there are lots of things lots of conferences you can attend, and I think every single one of them is going to teach you something. The San Francisco Writers Conference is, several days with so many different panels and so many different experts. But there's a conference down in Mexico I went to once, the San Miguel Writers Conference. They're everywhere. And you can also do things like virtual literary agent pitching sessions. You can sign up for things like that from other places. There are programs, that do virtual type events. So there's a lot out there, and you could be doing a lot of it. I think if you want to meet agents and learn for variety of people, then attending them is great. I highly recommend that you attend one.
How about book festivals? What are your thoughts on authors or people who are aspiring to become authors for them to attend a book festival or a book fair? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's fine. I've done a couple. I don't know that you go and sell a whole lot of books, maybe, but anytime you're getting out, and I mean, if you're the author, if you're getting out and trying to sell your books, it's of benefit to you.
Yeah. No, I agree with that as well. Like I haven't done too many book festivals or book fairs. I think actually I can count on one hand how many that I've done. But the last one that I did was the Bay Area Book Festival, and that's where I met Miss Cheryl Bizet-Boutte and Jenny Grossenbacher. And Miss Cheryl in particular was the one who introduced me to the San Francisco Writers Conference in 2024. And ever since then, everything has just gone, it's accelerated exponentially for me, and just with my career and what I've been able to do as a writer, and having these wonderful opportunities somehow, some way, every year being able to be in a position to help more and more people, even through the Writers Conference. But I know it doesn't stop there, because you have to continuously put in the work. So for you just put out that new book, right? You just released it last month, January. For those who are maybe listening to this, I don't know, later in 2026 or whenever you listen to it. But what keeps you going for new stories? Are you constantly writing new stories, or is it the lightning bolt has to strike and boom, the idea comes? Or what's that process look like for you as a writer to create new material?
Right. So mostly I write nonfiction. I have one novel that needs some help, but that I've had for a long time. But I am writing all the time, but not always on a book.
Mm-hmm.
So, starting, I guess when we get done here, I'm going to start working on an article for Writer's Digest magazine. I have blog posts. So I have 3 active blogs. I have 4 blogs, but one of them I haven't written on in a long time. One based on how to blog a book, my first book, one that's called Write Nonfiction Now. Tells you what it's about. And then I have a blog on my main site, ninaamir.com, that it's mostly personal and spiritual growth. And that blog right now, I post 3 times a month, and the other one's only once a month. I used to post when the algorithms were different. I used to post a lot more often, but shorter. In any case, so like today, I just finished a blog post, but I started that on the flight on the way back from San Francisco, and then I worked on it yesterday, and I think a little the day before. It's quite a long one. I don't usually write quite so long, but so I have to keep up with the blogging, right? So most weeks I'm working on a blog post, if not more than one. And then there, people say, are you writing? Well, I'm not writing a book right now, but I also am promoting my 2 of my programs, and so I'm writing emails, right? So that's marketing copy, still writing. But when I have lots of ideas, I have a new idea, and I'm not sure whether to pursue it because I'm not sure I have time. But but I do get new ideas. I also have old ideas. So I have books that I meant to write long ago, that some of which I created small booklets, like stapled. You ever get an envelope in the mail and it says free book inside, and when you open it, it's this little stapled pamphlet, right? Or whatever. Those are called booklets. And obviously, people think of them as books. And so I created some of those based on ideas for books so that I could go out and speak. So I could say I had a book, and then I would sell those at the back of the room for, $10. And anyway, so some of those books I may still write. I may still expand them and make them into full-length books. But I also have other ideas. So if I'm in the mode of working on a book, then I'm writing. Then I'm writing, every day, 5 days a week or something, and trying to get a head start on that. But as a nonfiction writer, you don't have to write the whole book to sell it to a traditional publisher. You only need to write a book proposal and a few chapters. And so typically that's my process, is I'm writing part of it, and then I'm doing the book proposal and waiting. And then once I get a deadline, like I said, I'm a magazine journalist. Deadlines are my friends. So once I have a deadline, I'm going to knock that book out.
Oh, for sure. And that's a wonderful, wonderful way to put it when it comes to writing, because many people that I've met in the industry, whether they're screenwriters or they write books, is just the idea of continuing to create. And some people that I've met early on in their writing career, specifically a lot of the self-published authors, would feel that, okay, if I'm not writing a book, I have to write another book. Oh, no, sorry, I said that wrong. Once I'm finished with my book, I have to immediately write another book, or these ideas, my writing proficiency will just somehow dissipate. And I don't agree with that. I like your ideology behind it. I might not be writing a book, but I'm still writing in some capacity, whether it's for an article or a blog post or a book, you're still writing. And I think that's the most important piece there, is that you're continuing to do it. Much like yourself too, Nina. When I was on the plane, I started writing a screenplay because I want to go and shoot this short film with a few actors that we had put this plan in motion, I think back in December. At the time, I was writing a movie for another short. But yeah, so the idea just came to me. I think I was asleep, woke up, boom, pulled out my little notebook, and I just started writing some things down. So the ideas just keep flowing. What I think is important for anybody who's a creative, specifically a writer, to just keep that consistent regardless of the medium that you're writing in, because it's really easy for your writing proficiency to slowly go away if you completely stop. So with your creativity, where do you seek inspiration from? If it's not from, not from you directly, do you get it from other people? Is it things that you watch, or the community of people that you have? Like, where does your inspiration continuously come from?
A lot of it does come from myself or from my clients. I mean, not that I would abscond with their story, but, it's the people's struggles. What do I struggle with? Like some of the articles that I've written in the past, like one of the ones that I got an award for, it was for a parenting magazine, but what I wrote about was a challenge I was seeing, or, I wanted the answer to a question. And so I proposed the article, and then I went and I interviewed some experts and I wrote the article. Is similar with the books. How to blog a book I was actually put on a panel at the San Francisco Writers Conference. It was about blogging, and they said that somebody was going to talk about blogging books. And at the time, there were lots of agents and publishers snatching up bloggers and giving them book deals. And so when I saw this thing about how to blog a book, I thought, well, that's a really good idea, but nobody was doing it. And then the one guy who was doing something similar didn't show up. And so I started a blog called How to Blog a Book, and I started writing about how you would go through that process. So that was an idea that came just from a panel. Another idea that I have, the one I have right now that I'm not sure if I should pursue, I mean, I probably should pursue it, but is based on something that I saw on the news. It's not a news thing per se, but it was sort of an event that was happening. And I feel like there's something I could share about it. But so a lot of it is still related to help. Like this one would be sort of a helpful book. A lot of my books to date have come out of my experiences in the publishing industry. So the blogging one, before I even came up with that idea, I had the idea for the author training manual, which is about how to use the nonfiction book proposal as a business plan for your book to help you craft a more marketable book. And the nonfiction book proposal is a business plan for a book, but like even self-published authors don't use it to create a business plan for their books. But traditional publishers are going to have one, and they require us to do more than the foundation of it. And so novelists don't do that. I still think they should. So that book was based on this idea that, because I was writing book proposals, and I was seeing how it changed your the mechanics of how you were going to carry out your idea so that it would be a better book. So that's where I've been getting most of my ideas. Creative visualization for writers was, there was that adult coloring book craze. And I ran into my publisher at a big publishing event. And I said, have you thought about that? And he said, yeah, I just researched it this morning. There are none. And I said, well, there are 2 books for writers, coloring books for writers, but they're self-published. I said, but, and so I went into my whole spiel. I don't think there's time, writers don't have time to color, but if we gave them something that they were coloring, like they were learning and they were coloring to solidify the ideas and that kind of thing, I think they would do it if they knew that if they were coloring and visualizing. Yeah. Anyway, so, that came from a trend that was out there. The book my agent is pitching is, actually based, I was at I'll just say a spiritual event, and I saw something happen and had a realization and said, well, what if I applied what I just saw, and what I know to, well, it's about stories we tell ourselves. What if I applied this to us unraveling the stories that don't serve us? And so I think my ideas come from all over, but mostly from my own experiences.
Yes. Oh, that's well said. And I wanted to ask 2 more questions, and one is going to deal with social media marketing, and the other one is going to deal with being a bestseller. And so I'll start with the bestseller one before I let you go here. So I've met plenty of people, yourself included, who either is an Amazon bestselling author or New York Times or Los Angeles Times, some sort of a bestselling author. How has that, if it has, elevated your marketability as an author by just having a bestseller to your name in comparison to you not having that before?
Well, I think it's a great credential. Amazon is much easier than the New York Times bestseller list. But if you can say you made it to the Amazon top 100 list, or you were number 1 on Amazon in your category, you're probably not going to be number 1 on all of Amazon, but books are put in categories. And if you can make it to the top 100 list, some people will say that's not really a bestseller. You have to be on the top 10 or you have to be in the first spot. The research I've done is, if you can make it onto the top 100, you're pretty much a bestseller. But most of my books have managed to be at some point number 1, and for an extended period in that top 10, 20. The new book, Change the World One Book at a Time, spent several weeks, 3, maybe 4 weeks in the top 10, dropped to 15 in one category, but it was up there in the top 10, and for a long time between spot 1 and 3 in the new releases category. Well, so that's still a category, and if you can make it to number 1 in the new releases, then you're definitely a bestseller. But all that to just say that it's a nice credential. It does mean your book is selling. But most books, I would say, with few exceptions, don't stay there. And so what does it do for me as an author? Well, if my book stays there, like How to Blog a Book stayed on the top 100 list on Amazon for blogging for, I think, 2.5 years. I could go there and I could always find it in the top 100. It was always there. The other day I went and looked and it was in the top 100. And I was like, wow, look at that. Every category is different. So the amount of books you have to sell to be a bestseller in the blogging category is going to be way different than in the memoir category, right? So it depends a lot on the category. But ultimately, if you want to traditionally publish, having a best-selling book says you market and your books are valuable and all of that. But like How to Blog a Book staying on there for so long, that says way more than Change the World One Book at a Time being there for 4 weeks.
For sure.
And I will add that there are people who do these Amazon bestseller campaigns, and they put their books in the wrong categories or whatever. They do this, they finagle everything so that they become a number 1 Amazon bestselling book in their category, and it lasts for like 24 hours. To me, that is not a best-selling book, and it's real. Other than the credential, the being able to say that, it does nothing.
No,
But to be
I
able,
agree with you.
yeah, I mean, I had 6 books on the same bestseller list, the authorship bestseller top 100 list on Amazon, all at the same time. Like, that's something to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, how did you get all those books on there at the same time? Or,
Yeah, for sure.
anyway, but so, yeah, I mean, it's a very nice credential,
Yeah.
but
Oh, I'd imagine. So, for me, I've never been a best-selling author, at least not at this point in time. But ironically enough, when I was doing indie publishing, Vani Tiwari, the scholarship winner, her and my niece, who I actually brought to who came to the conference as well, Flaka M or Ariana, they both, I somehow, some way managed to get them both to being a bestseller. And Ariana in particular, her children's book, we released it in 2 different languages on 2 separate weeks. And his titled Adi's Wish, and Adi's Wish stayed at the #1 spot in, I think, in Spanish, and so in a couple of categories. And then when when the Spanish version released, it actually ended up going there. And I think her Spanish version was #3, and the English version was #1. But they were in the same category. And to me, I think that was nice to see that. Okay, like for Vani for her poetry book and for Ariana, I was at least able to produce a couple of bestsellers. And that's kind of when I started to do my study on what goes into being a bestseller on Amazon versus New York Times versus whatever the case is. Like, having a bestseller status in any event seems to be an accomplishment in itself, because it just shows that people go and they support you, they're buying your work, and there's an algorithm there. But I'm with you. I have heard stories where people go and they'll finagle a system, or they'll put their book that's about broccoli, a broccoli wrestler, and they're going to put that in a race car category. I don't know. I'm being facetious, but you kind of get my point, right? And then they somehow put a campaign on it and boast it up. I've also heard that similarly enough with New York Times bestselling authors years ago, not anytime recently, where they happen to be a millionaire or they're well off. They could just dump a bunch of sales into it, and then boom. And it's just a way to finesse the system to get the title. But I mean, you have the title, but I think there's more validity and more long-term impact for marketability if you can actually show that your stuff stayed there for an extended period of time.
Well, and I agree with you about the New York Times bestseller list, because I know people who have money and have influential friends who are influencers, and they get them to promote, and they offer, like, buy my course and get the book, or or get this like a free book campaign where they're buying the books, and they just bulk buy them in huge amounts. And that looks like regular sales. And that's how they get on the, and between that and the promotion by their influencing buddies, they sell a lot. They do sell a lot of books, but a lot of times it's, buy this thing and get the book free. And then he or she is delivering the book. I don't see that as that legitimate. That said, using your friends who have big lists, email lists or lots of followers on social media, that is a tried and true method for getting your book sold and onto any bestseller list. I mean, I can't say I don't do it. I have a virtual book tour. I appear on blogs. I appear on podcasts. I do all this stuff in order to get myself and my book in front of people and in front of your audience, right? So you're basically calling on other people's audience to be part of your promotion. And that's legitimate, I think, because it's not like I'm buying huge bulk sales of my book or, anything like that. I'm just saying, what can I do to get in front of more people? And of course, every time somebody like yourself says, yes, you can be on my show or on my blog, it's a vote of confidence in you, right? If somebody's saying, I believe in you and I trust you enough to let you speak to my audience. And so it's like a referral, right? And that is legitimate and will get you on a bestseller list if you do enough of it. And I do that with every single book, but I'm doing the work. Like, I'm writing the blog post. I'm showing up for the podcast. I'm not buying my books in bulk. So anyway, a little tirade on that.
No worries. Thank you for that breakdown. And that brings me to my final piece, which was the social media part, right? Now, I know everyone does things a bit differently, and I'm sorry, I went over about 7 minutes, so I'll keep
That's
this one
okay.
real short. Yeah, but the social media aspect in today's time when it comes to marketing is significant. Some people can argue that you don't need social media, which you may not. I don't think you need it, but I do think it's a necessary tool to have. If you have other avenues of ways, like maybe you have an email list, a newsletter, maybe you have people who can help you. But I think it's much easier if you can connect with people. And social media just seems to be one of the easiest methods of trying to create some sort of a demand around yourself. There's immediate social proof. There's an immediacy where people can just put your name in and they can see your work right then and there. Not that it's an end all be all, but I do think there's a benefit to it. For you, has social media in the way that you use it, has it helped you or hindered you at all? Like, are you better off without it, or do you see value in what you can do with social media as an author?
I see value in it. I mean, and I'm kind of everywhere. I'm on most social media platforms. I have a couple I don't use very much, so I'm there, but you're not going to find a whole lot from me. But I think it's a necessity. I don't think you do have to be everywhere. I think you can pick one or two social media platforms that you enjoy or where your readers are. It's a worldwide platform. And so I think in that sense, it's super important because you connect with people all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't rely just on social media. And for my books, I have not bought ads for my books. I've bought ads for other things, but I haven't, my programs, but I haven't paid for ads for my books, which you can on social media. I mean, you can also do it on Amazon, which I've never done. But I think it's a tool that has to be used in conjunction with other things. Like I would never tell someone. So it's important to build what we call an author platform, which is a built-in readership for your book in your target market, right? So if the people following you on social media are your target market, that's awesome. Those are the people you want to promote to. But every social media, and this was something we talked about on one of the panels at the San Francisco Writers Conference, every social media platform you are on is rented property. It is not yours. They make the rules. They decide who sees what. It's not optimal. Owned properties are things like your email list and your website and your blog, which exists on your website. Like even Substack, which people love, and you can create a mailing list there that you can even export to your own system. It's rented property. It's not yours. And people want to use these sites because they have their own built-in audience, and you can draw on that to get your audience. My feeling is you're better off with owned properties, but you can use them in conjunction with rented properties if you're sending people back to your website. The best thing you can do is to build your website and help it move its way up in the search engine optimization, thing, so that you get seen when somebody searches for something. But I would definitely be using social media and share. Like I share my blog posts there with a link, and it says read more. I don't give them the whole thing. I just say read more, and I send them to my blog, to my website to read it, where I hope they'll sign up for my mailing list, because a mailing list continues to be the most powerful tool you have to reach your readers.
That right there, the most powerful tool. I think I'm gonna end it on that note. For anybody who is interested in checking out Nina Amir, what's a website if you don't mind providing one here?
Yeah, so you can just go to ninaamir.com, NINAAMIR.com. From there are tabs, and you can click through to my site, howtoblogAbook.com or writenonfictionnow.com. You can find all my programs and courses for writers. I also have my Inspired Creator community. That's under personal and spiritual growth. So if you're interested in that, you can go there. And my blog on that site is personal and spiritual growth. And Yeah, the tab for there's courses and all. My Nonfiction Writers University, everything is there and easily found. My books are found there too, but you can also go to booksbyninaamir.com. Just always know there are 2 A's there. So booksby.ninaamir.com. And that's where you'll find the new book and all the others right there on Amazon.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that information. And thank you so much for giving me an additional 12 minutes of your time. I know you stay busy, and I'm grateful for this. And I'm not sure what 2027 is going to bring with the Writers Conference, but whatever happens, it's still going to be great. But I definitely hope to continue to stay in touch with you. And thank you again for coming on board and for doing take 2 of this.
Well, I'm glad we didn't have any internet problems, and it was my pleasure and my honor. Thank you, Osiris, for having me on.
Of course, thank you. Hey, and thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to tune in to today's episode. You're live with Osiris and Nina Amir. We'll catch you next time. Take care.